So, I was actually reading from Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, and almost try to meditate on it every day, but due to work and other things, I was not able to. But since the last 2 days, few days, I was going through this passage, and even just before this, we have the call of Matthew, which is in verse 8 to 13. And when we come to this passage, we see the attitude of Pharisees. Uh, just before this, in the call of Matthew, when Jesus calls Matthew on the place of his work, Matthew do not hesitate. He just gets up and follows Jesus, and then he just have a party in his home, and he calls Jesus and everyone. And these Pharisees go and ask the disciples of Jesus, why your teacher does eat with Pharisees and tax collectors and sinners. So even in this passage, we see that the disciples of John and some of the Pharisees come and ask Jesus, why your disciples are not fasting, like how we are fasting and how Pharisees are fasting. So the fact is, the Pharisees and the religious leaders at that time, they were uh, outwardly appearing to be good, and that is what Jesus also said in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 7, how not to pray, how not to fast. Everything they do so that people will look at them and appreciate and say things. So they were always concerned about what people think and what people say about them. But rather, Jesus, even in this passage, the kind of response that he gives is all about the inward change that Jesus wanted, and Jesus basically speaks about change. So when we look at the world today, we are in a situation wherein we never thought we will be, and we have to think differently and do things very much differently. And what this passage tells about is about the change. There was an author called Alvin Toffler who said, in the 21st century, the illiterate will not be the one who does not know how to read and write, but the one who does not change. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi also said, be the change that you wanted to see. So Jesus here gives a response which is not very straightforward, but rather he points out to the very question itself. When they ask why your disciples do not fast, they did not ask why you and your disciples do not fast, because they know that Jesus was fasting. In fact, in Matthew chapter 4, we have studied that some days ago about the temptation in the wilderness when Jesus was tempted by the devil. We know that Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. So Jesus was fulfilling all the righteousness, all the required laws. But what he points out here is this law and all the rituals are to be followed so that God looks at our heart. The transformation needs to happen from our heart, but rather the Pharisees and religious leaders took this as an opportunity to praise themselves, to show that they are self-righteous. And that's why Jesus points out to the fact that the guests of the bridegroom will not fast until the bridegroom is there with them. So Jesus is comparing himself as a bridegroom, and the guests are the disciples. So the disciples understood who Jesus was, and many tax collectors and sinners understood who Jesus was. And some days ago, we also looked into one of the blind, Bartimaeus. He understood who Jesus was, but the Pharisees and religious leaders who read the text, who actually put the literal text on their foreheads and striped them on the hand and other parts of the body. They meditated on it, but still, when Jesus came, they could not understand who Jesus was. So Jesus tells about the fact that he is the bridegroom and he will be taken away at a certain point, and then people and then the guest will fast. And also he gives us another perspective. We see that in the call of Matthew, when Jesus was eating with the sinners and tax collectors, the Pharisees came and asked about why he is eating with them. So they were concerned about what to eat. And here again, Jesus is giving us an analogy of a cloth. The new cloth cannot be stitched with the old one, and also the new wine cannot be put in the old wineskin. In fact, in the amplified version, there is a footnote which says, "A skin was a bag made from the skin of an animal. New wine was always put in a new bag so that the bag would stretch as the wine continued to ferment, and then the bag would harden. An old bag would burst if the new wine was put in it." So always it is the new wine that is put in new bottle. So Jesus is saying the rituals, the old tradition, everything is fine. Jesus himself was following, and at an instant he said, "I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it." He fulfilled all the needs of the law. He is the one who gave us the law. He is the Lord of Sabbath. But Pharisees and the religious leaders who took this as an advantage to compare them with others and making themselves uh, to showcase them as pure and holy compared to others is what Jesus did not like. And we also know that Jesus pronounces the vows in the coming chapters of Matthew, when he clearly points out to what exactly these Pharisees were doing. They were like the whitewashed tombs. Outside they appear to be pure and holy, but inside is all full of uh, corruption. And also he compares with the cup, which appears to be clean outside, but inside it's full of dirt. So also we see that Jesus never answers uh, in a way saying, "Oh, I did not know that. I'm sorry," or any of those things. He was so specific. He was so well read, and we see that in Luke he was learning, and he was growing in the wisdom of man, and also he is the wisdom of God himself. So with this, what I wanted to say today is, when we look at the aspect of sin and repentance. Repentance in Greek is actually said as metamonia, that is to change one's mind. So let us turn from the sinful nature and turn towards God. The law and tradition sometimes overtakes this aspect of thinking what we are doing is right, but until and unless we come to the feet of Jesus, because in the call of Matthew again, when we see these Pharisees, when they said, "Why your teacher is eating with the tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus said, "The healthy does not need a doctor, but the sick. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Go and learn about it." So, the need for God is something which we need at all the times of our life until the moment that we live in this earth. Uh, we need to accept the fact that we need to change ourselves, our attitudes, and let us be aware of the Pharisaical mindset, which always compares and contrasts with others, saying, "I am better, I am not like the tax collectors and sinners." But rather, these tax collectors and sinners understood that we need God to heal our condition of our heart. And transformation from the heart is something which Jesus always points us towards. And with this, I would like to close. May God bless with these words. Amen.